You already know the feeling of opening your laptop to build something and closing it 20 minutes later to scroll instead. That gap between who you planned to be this morning and who you actually were by noon, that's the whole problem. You've been sold a quiet lie that the goal of a good life is to feel good as often as possible. By the end of this, you'll see why chasing that feeling is the exact thing keeping you stuck, broke, and bored. Start with what comfort actually does to a body over time. Lie in bed for 2 weeks and your muscles begin to waste. Your bone density drops. Your heart, with less to push against, gets weaker by the day. Doctors have measured this for decades in hospital patients, and the numbers are brutal. A young, healthy person can lose a serious chunk of leg strength in a couple of weeks of rest. Rest, the thing that feels good. So here's a question worth sitting with. If the body falls apart when nothing is asked of it, what makes you think the mind is any different? It isn't. The mind runs on the same cruel rule. A skill you don't strain against fades. A tolerance for boredom you never build collapses the first time a task gets dull. And the modern world has become a machine for removing every demand from your day. Food arrives at your door. Entertainment refreshes forever. A dopamine hit waits behind every glass rectangle in your pocket. Each one whispers the same thing. You don't have to struggle for this. And every time you accept the offer, you train yourself to need the next one sooner. Think about the actual texture of your last truly satisfying day. I'd bet money it was hard. Maybe you shipped a project after a week of staring at broken code. Maybe you hit a lift you'd been failing for a month. Maybe you finally had the conversation you'd been dodging. The satisfaction came soaked in difficulty. That's the part nobody monetizes, because you can't sell it in a 30-second ad. Nobody films the 9th boring hour of the work. They film the launch, the medal, the result, and they leave out the only ingredient that actually produced it. Here's where it gets strange. The pursuit of pleasure and the experience of meaning often pull in opposite directions. Researchers who study well-being have spent years separating two things people sloppily mash together: feeling good and living well. People with deeply meaningful lives report plenty of stress, plenty of worry, plenty of hard days. People optimizing purely for pleasure report a strange, hollow flatness. The smiley face life and the meaningful life are not the same address, and one of them ages a lot better than the other. So why does your brain keep steering you toward the worst one? Because it was built for a world that no longer exists. For most of human history, the impulse to grab the easy calorie and rest whenever possible kept you alive. Scarcity did the discipline for you. Nobody had to tell a hunter to value a full belly. Now that same wiring runs inside a world of infinite supply, and it fires every time something easy is within reach. The instinct that once saved your ancestors pulls the same whether the target is nicotine or a 4th hour on your phone. And people who log that pull somewhere. Harness tracks each urge and redirects it to something useful. Link in the description. You start seeing the loop for what it is. Old software running on new hardware that never stops offering. Picture two builders starting the same project on the same Monday. One organizes their feelings first, buys the perfect notebook, watches the right videos, waits for motivation to show up like a bus. The other just opens the editor and writes one ugly line of code while feeling nothing in particular. 6 months later, one has a finished thing people use, and the other has a beautiful empty notebook. The difference was talent? No. The difference was a relationship with discomfort. That phrase deserves a second look, because it's the whole game. A relationship with discomfort. Most people treat every unpleasant sensation as a stop sign. Bored? Stop. Anxious? Stop. Uncertain how this ends? Stop. They've handed the steering wheel to whichever feeling shouts loudest. And the feelings that shout loudest are almost always the ones protecting your comfort while quietly mortgaging your future. The builders who win flip that. They learn to read discomfort as a signal pointing toward growth, the way soreness points to a muscle that's adapting. This has a real name in psychology: distress tolerance. Your capacity to keep acting toward what matters while feeling like garbage. And the encouraging part is that it behaves like a muscle. You grow it through reps. Small, deliberate, voluntary reps of doing the thing you don't feel like doing. Now, let me steelman the other side, because there's a version of this that's poison. Some people here embrace discomfort and turn it into self-punishment, grinding until they break, treating rest as weakness, wearing exhaustion like a badge. That's its own trap, and it produces burnout, injury, and people who quit at 30. Pain for its own sake is just masochism with better branding. The skill is refusing to let the avoidance of suffering make your decisions for you. Think about the people you actually admire. The ones building businesses from a laptop, the ones with bodies that took years to earn, the ones who quit the safe road to bet on themselves. Strip away the highlight reel, and they all share one boring trait. They do the thing that scares them on a regular schedule. They make the cold call. They post the work that might get laughed at. They train on the day they feel weakest. None of it feels good in the moment, and that's exactly the point. They've decoupled action from mood. Your mood is weather. Weather changes by the hour and answers to nobody. If your output depends on feeling motivated, you've tied your whole future to the most unreliable thing about you. The way out is to act regardless, until the action stops needing permission from your feelings. There's a real line between the two, and it's worth naming. Productive discomfort moves you towards something you chose. Destructive suffering just damages you in service of nothing, or in service of impressing strangers. Lifting heavy builds you. Lifting until your spine fails wrecks you. Sitting with the boredom of deep work builds focus. Sitting in misery at a life you hate, doing nothing to change it, just rots. The goal was always to stop letting the smallest discomfort veto your biggest plans. And this is why the soft life leaves people miserable rather than happy. When you arrange your days to dodge every hard thing, your world quietly shrinks. The conversations you avoid shrink your relationships. The projects you abandon at the first wall shrink your sense of what you're capable of. The risks you skip shrink your future into something small and very safe and very gray. Comfort slowly draws the walls in around you until your whole existence fits inside a single room you're afraid to leave. Feel that for a second, because most people never do. A generation raised on convenience reports more anxiety, more emptiness, more of that low background hum of dissatisfaction. The reason is mechanical. A life with no voluntary hardship gives you nothing to push against, and a self only forms by pushing against something. Strip out all the friction, and you get a person who has never found out who they are. So what do you actually do with this? On a Tuesday, you start absurdly small, because the point is the rep, not the size. You take the cold shower because you're teaching your body that you decide the discomfort doesn't. You do the hardest task on your list first while it's still ugly and you'd rather not. You sit through an hour of focused work without reaching for your phone, and you let the boredom exist while you keep working through it. Each rep is a tiny vote. Each one says, I run this. Watch what happens over a few weeks of that. The discomfort stays, but your relationship to it changes. The cold still shocks. The blank page still resists. The panic loses its grip, though, because you've proven to yourself dozens of times that you can feel the resistance and act anyway. That proof compounds. It's the closest thing to real confidence that exists, and you can't buy it, fake it, or download it. You earn it one uncomfortable choice at a time. Here's the reframe that changes the math. You've been treating pleasure as the destination and discomfort as the toll you pay to reach it. Flip it. The discomfort is the point. The willingness to be uncomfortable in the service of something you care about is the single skill underneath every other skill. The body you want, the work you want, the freedom you actually crave. Get good at being uncomfortable on purpose, and almost nothing stays out of reach. Stay allergic to it, and almost everything does, no matter how badly you want it. Be honest about the trade, though, because honesty is the only thing that makes this stick. This path costs you the easy dopamine today, every day, on purpose. You'll watch people choose the soft option and look perfectly content doing it. Some of them will even seem to win for a while. The bill on comfort comes late, and it always comes. In a 35-year-old who's never built anything, never tested anything, never found the edge of what they could do. You only get to choose whether you take your discomfort in small voluntary doses now or one massive involuntary dose later. So the next time your hand reaches for the easy thing, the scroll, the snooze, the excuse, the unsent message, catch it. Notice that you're standing at the smallest possible fork in the road. One direction feels good for 10 minutes. The other builds the person who could have anything. You won't feel like choosing the hard one. That feeling was always going to show up late, and waiting for it is how the soft life wins. Choose before the feeling arrives. That's the whole secret, and it fits in a single breath. Do the thing while it's still uncomfortable, and let your future quietly assemble itself out of every small refusal to take the easy way.